Hello friends, in today's video I'm going to be showing you how I took paper scraps out of my scrap bin, cut those scraps into geometrical shapes, and then formed these really whimsical, cute, fun, and stash busting journal covers, sketchbook covers, or even something you can do inside your scrapbooking. I'm going to show you how I did everything step by step, so let's get started. So to kick this off, friends, you are going to need paper scraps. So I would suggest that you definitely aim for those bigger pieces of paper scraps in your stash that have been kicking around from journals or sketchbooks, maybe scrapbooking that you've done. Maybe you just have some older pattern papers, some older papers, period. They don't necessarily have to be pattern paper. It could be cardstock that's maybe colored or have some type of design to it. But you're basically going to be using those things that you typically wouldn't use for one of your normal projects, or my main suggestion is that you use paper scraps, okay? So here I have paper scraps that I have in one of my most recent scrap bins, and I did aim for the bigger pieces of paper that are in there because for today's project they are just going to be, better utilized. So I'm just going to start by separating the bigger pieces. And I have all different types of things in here. There's pattern paper. There are things like this, which is where I've tested watercolors in order to do product review over on my art channel, The Thrifty Apprentice. There are gorgeous offcuts like this from other projects that I've worked on, and even ephemera. Look at that. It's gorgeous, right? So all of these things are up for grabs in this project. This is offcut of wallpaper. So anything that you have in your scrap bin will work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this organized, and we are going to be targeting a base. Now you can use, and this came out of my scrap bin, so I'm not pulling out any fancy nothing to do this project. You know what I mean? This is going to be really straightforward, and you don't even have to include the sewing that I'm eventually going to get to. So I just think I'm going to use this as the base, and you can make it whatever size you want. Now I'm going to see if I can make this 8 by 8, even if I have to keep the area where I have the holes, because eventually it's all going to be covered anyway, because 8 by 8 is the size that I've been using to target the projects that I'm going to be using this idea in. But you can translate this into the covers for pretty much anything: small notebooks, junk journals, sketchbooks, travel vacation books, the front of your envelope, storage type envelopes, big pocket type envelopes you're making to store other ephemera in. There's going to be so many applications, and it's going to be so easy and straightforward. So I want to cut this down to 8 by 8 if possible, and I'm not going to move anything. We're just going to go straight forward. Can I get that down to 8? I can. And let's see if it's already. Yeah, it just so happens that that's right at 8. So we're going to leave it just like that. I'm not going to worry about it because I'm going to be covering all of that anyway. So let's move my paper cutter. And of course you could have used scissors, or you could have used your X-Acto knife and a ruler in order to cut your paper down. I wanted mine to be a square orientation, but you could have made yours landscape, you could have made yours portrait, whatever size you want to make yours in order to target the project. It's just the idea to get your gorgeous cover, and making it out of paper scraps and using up those things you need to get rid of. The idea here is to take your paper scraps and cut geometrical shapes, stack them on top of whatever your base is, using whatever adhesive you choose to use in order to create a very nice piece of art that would be cute on the front of a journal or a sketchbook or whatever have you. So that's what we're going to do. Let's get started. So I am going to go ahead and time lapse this part as I separate all of my paper straps in order to start building my front cover for a journal, sketchbook, whatever you want to make it. So basically what you see me doing is I'm separating all of the larger pieces of paper scraps that I have, and I am kind of targeting a color scheme here. It's not necessary, but I just wanted to do something different, right? So after separating all of the bigger pieces of paper from the scrap pile, making sure that they all had some type of color coordination, I grabbed my Fabri-Tac glue, which is a silicone-based glue that I'm going to be using to do my gluing with. Now, I can let you know you can use whatever glue you want, even a water-based PVA glue. Just as I always tell you, make sure that after so long, you put it under something heavy so that it can dry and it can remain flat. Now, once I had everything separated, I wanted to go through and start to cut down my geometrical shapes. So the first thing I'm doing is cutting each scrap down to a square that is the same size all the way around. 3 by 3, 4 by 4, 2 by 2, 5 by 5. And I'm basically taking those squares and then cutting those squares in half in order to form my triangles. And you will see that I am making big triangles, medium-sized triangles, even small triangles. And all of this is going to be used in order to build the cover. And I'm cutting the different sizes. That way, as I layer them, you will be able to see the previous triangle that I put down up under the one that I'm putting on top. So I'm just going through and just cutting down all of these triangles from all of these different colors that contains these browns and dark greens and just a lot of neutral colors with some lights added in as well. You'll see later on that I'm actually going to start to try to build this based on using the value knowledge I have from painting. But we'll talk about that in just a second. So here I'm still cutting down triangles, just, making some really small ones. I'm going to clean up all of the scrap papers that I have after cutting down my triangles. And at this point, I'm going to go in and start auditioning all of the triangles on the substrate. Now, I'm not going to glue anything down at this point. What I'm going to do at this point is just start to build and position the cover. I want to see how I want the triangles to go on the substrate. As I told you earlier, I'm keeping value in mind. So maybe I'm putting my darkest, richest neutrals on the bottom, and I'm building up to mid-tone and then building up to my lightest papers on top. And I'm even going to finish it off by taking a paper scrap that has really warm colors on it in order to put it in the middle, because I wanted that to jump out at you before anything else did. So as you can see, that is exactly what I'm doing. I'm just auditioning. What do I want where? Do I want to put this here? Do I want to put this there? And then at some point, as I start to build, I'm going to decide, okay, I want some more papers on the bottom. So I'm literally going to take everything off and reposition it and continue to build. It's just a lot of fun to do this. Not hard at all, friends. You're cutting triangles and you're literally building layers. Now here you'll see I'm measuring off a little diamond for that area in the middle. And basically I'm just going to cut a square that covers that area and then put it in the middle with a focal image on top. Now, with everything kind of laid out on the substrate the way you would want it to go, I moved mine around a little bit, unfortunately. At this stage, I would suggest you take a picture. Grab a camera, your phone, whatever have you, snap a picture so it would help you have visual reference to the way you kind of wanted things to stack up. Not unless you're okay with just kind of reorganizing things and doing it a different way. Once you have snapped your picture, you can put it to the side and use it as reference. So what I'm doing at this point with you guys, we're going to remove all of our papers now that I have my picture snapped, and we are going to take glue. I'm using Fabri-Tac, as I told you guys. You can use whatever glue you want. If you use a water-based glue, again, I'm going to stress putting it under something heavy to allow it to press down, seal well, and lay flat. And just if you're using a water-based glue, but if you're using something that's silicone-based, you won't have that to worry about. So at this point, I'm just going to remove everything, and then I'm going to use the Fabri-Tac to start gluing all the pieces down. Now, as I glue down the corners and around the base, I am going to kind of extend the paper just a little bit. Let me show you what I mean. So like when I'm going to glue down this corner, I will extend it just a little bit over the edge of the paper. That way I can make sure that everything is covered. And then once all the pieces are glued down, I'll just flip the paper over and use scissors to cut off all of the excess that may be there from any of the scrap papers that are hanging over the edge. So with that, let's go ahead and glue down all our pieces. So that was my last piece, putting on the center. We do still have the actual focal image left that I'm going to be putting here. I'm trying to decide how I want it to go. I think, yeah, it's definitely gonna go like that. And before I do that though, I do want to go ahead, although I'm using a glue that is not water-based, I still want to put some compression on this. So I'm gonna put it under a couple of books and give it a few minutes to press down and really dry. Now, as you can see from this point, you can see all of the beautiful layers of the paper. I really love the way this came out, the way it looks. I just like this technique for building a sketchbook cover all together. Once I put it from under the books, giving it a few minutes to dry, before I come back, I'm going to go ahead and sew a straight stitch seam all around the outside my cover. And as you can see, like using this one as an example, it just kind of adds a little bit more elegance in my opinion. Now this one I kind of zigzag around. On this one, it's more of a straight stitch going all the way around. I'm probably going to do a straight stitch on this one as well, and I will keep my thread white because I think it's going to go with everything. So again, I'm going to press it under something heavy, give it a few minutes to dry, take it from under that. Sorry about that, friends. My camera died. So as I was saying, I am going to put this under something heavy, give it time to dry, flip it over on the back, use some scissors to cut off the excess, just trimming along the sides, along the edge of my base. Then I'll take it to my sewing machine and I'll sew a straight stitch around. Now, you could actually, as I said, glue everything down really well if you don't want to stitch, or you could do faux stitching where you put down dots and then draw a line connecting those dots all around the very edge to do faux stitching. So there's several different ways you can take it if you want to. So let's go ahead and let this dry, and then we're going to come back and wrap this up. Now that we have given our cover time to dry, I've gone ahead and cut off any excess paper. I took it to the sewing machine and did a straight stitch all the way around each corner. And then I inked the edges just to give it a finished look. And this is what we end up with. The only thing I need to do now is attach my focal image, and you'll attach whatever focal image you chose for your cover. Now, I did alter it just a little bit. I decided to cut off the edges of the focal image, and then I took a corner rounder and rounded the corners, and then inked the edges of it as well. Now, it just so happens that this one is a sticker. Yours might not be, but even when using a sticker, I like to put a little extra adhesive on it just to make sure it's going to stay stuck down really nicely. And there we have our completed cover. Now, if you wanted to, you could put a book plate on yours or whatever, but I think I'm going to call that good. And now that we have that one finished, we'll just take a look at the other ones that were created. And I will be able to use these to make really nice covers for some upcoming journals that will be available over on Palm Street during the Handmade Sketchbook journal sale. I like them all. And those are going to be some nice size journals. This makes 8 by 8. You can make, or I think this is 8.5 by 8.5, I'm sorry. And the actual covers are 8 by 8. But you can make these in whatever size you want. You can do 12 by 12s, 10 by 10, 6 by 6, 4 by 4s. Just keep it symmetrical and have fun. Use up those paper scraps, friends. Hopefully you saw something in this video that you liked. You picked up on something that you found helpful. If you did, don't forget to sprinkle a little love. Give the video a thumbs up. Do check the video description for the Palm Street link so that you can check out the sketchbook sale when it happens, which will be the last Sunday of February. Yes, so do check out the Palm Street link. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think of today's projects. Did you give this a try? Are you going to give this a try? I would love to know. I would love for you to share. You can DM me on Instagram, or you can even send images to thethriftyapprentice@gmail.com if you would like for me to see your final creation. If you're new to the channel or returning and you haven't subscribed, don't forget to hit that subscription button and notification bell so you know when we go live and when we upload. And be sure to check the video description for all of the relevant links, including links to the second channel, or should I say the main channel, The Thrifty Apprentice, here on YouTube. And with that, I can say, alchemy complete. Just keep creating.